All right, let's dive into one of the most important and, let's be honest, one of the most confusing parts of precision hand loading, bullet seating depth. You know, getting this one thing right can literally be the difference between a decent group and a jaw-dropping one-hole group. So, let's get it demystified.
Have you ever had one of those days at the range? You know, you load up a batch of ammo, and it's just pure magic, printing these tiny, beautiful groups. But then the next batch, which you swear you made the exact same way, looks more like a shotgun pattern? Yeah, it's enough to make you want to pull your hair out. It's a super common frustration.
Well, guess what? There's a really good reason for that inconsistency. And the secret isn't some kind of voodoo or black magic. It all comes down to what you're measuring and, more importantly, what you're not measuring. And that is exactly what we're going to break down right now.
Okay, before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's just agree on the main goal here. In precision reloading, the name of the game is consistency. That's it. We're trying to make every single round a perfect, identical twin of the one before it. Because when every round is the same, the pressure, the burn, the bullets trip down the barrel, it all happens the exact same way every time you pull the trigger.
And what does all that consistency get you? Well, it gets you confidence. It's huge. When you know without a doubt that your ammo is absolutely perfect, you can stop worrying about it and focus on your breathing, your trigger press, the stuff that you control. That confidence in your gear is honestly half the battle.
So let's start where pretty much every single one of us starts, with the reloading manual. And that's where we're introduced to the most common measurement out there, cartridge overall length, or as we all call it, COL.
So what is COL? It's just what it sounds like, right? It's the total length of the cartridge, from the flat bottom of the case all the way to the very, very tip of the bullet. And you'll see this number in every single reloading book. It's a critical number for making sure your rounds are safe and that they'll actually fit in your magazine.
Okay, so if it's in the manual and it's the standard, it has to be the right way to do things for accuracy, right? Well, not so fast. For making sure your ammo is safe and it functions, absolutely. But if you're chasing that last little bit of precision, well, COL has a really big flaw.
And here it is. This is the big gotcha. The tips of bullets, that little flat spot called the me-plot that we measure to for COL, are surprisingly inconsistent. I mean, even in a single box of really expensive, high-quality match bullets, the length from the base to that tip can vary by a few thousandths of an inch.
And this chart right here really tells the whole story. Just look at these numbers. We measured 5 rounds from the same box. When we measured the cartridge overall length to the tip, the total variation was 7 thousandths of an inch. But when we measured those same 5 rounds to a different point on the bullet, the variation was only 1 thousandth. That is a massive, massive difference.
So think about what that actually means when you're at your press. If you're trying to get every single round to have the exact same COL, you're constantly adjusting your seating die. For a bullet with a slightly longer tip, you're pushing it deeper into the case. For one with a shorter tip, you're leaving it out a bit. By chasing that perfect COL, you're actually creating a ton of inconsistency where it really matters.
So if measuring to the tip is the problem, what's the solution? Well, let's talk about the real precision standard. It's called cartridge base to ogive, or CBTO.
Now, the hero of our story is a part of the bullet called the ogive. That's simply the curved part of the bullet's nose where it starts to taper. And here's the key. Unlike the tip, the shape of that curve is incredibly consistent from one bullet to the next. It's the part of the bullet that's designed to engage with the rifling in your barrel.
And speaking of rifling, let's quickly define a couple more things. The lands are just the raised parts of the spiral rifling inside your barrel. Now, bullet jump is that tiny, tiny distance the bullet travels after it leaves the case, but before its ogive makes contact with those lands. And controlling that jump distance is one of the biggest keys to tuning a load for accuracy.
And this is where it all clicks. CBTO is the measurement from the base of the case to that super consistent spot on the bullet's ogive. And since that ogive is what makes contact with the lands, if you have a consistent CBTO, you have a consistent bullet jump. And that is what gives you that repeatable, consistent accuracy we're all looking for.
This breaks it down perfectly. COL measures to the wonky, inconsistent tip. CBTO measures to the reliable, consistent ogive. COL is really only useful to make sure your rounds fit in the magazine. But CBTO, that's what's absolutely crucial for accuracy. One measurement can fool you, the other gives you total control over that all-important bullet jump. Okay, so we're sold. We need to measure CBTO. But what's the magic number? Well, you're not going to find it in a book. It's unique to your rifle, and you have to find its specific limit.
I can't stress this enough. Every single rifle chamber is slightly different. Because of tiny tolerances in how barrels are made, the exact spot where the rifling starts in your gun is unique. So the max length for my rifle is not the max length for your rifle. You've got to measure your own.
So how do you do it? Well, the easiest way is with a tool like a Hornady OAL gauge. You basically put a special case for your caliber on it, drop your bullet in loosely, and then slide the whole thing into your rifle's chamber. Then you just gently push a little rod forward until you feel the bullet just kiss the rifling. You lock it down, pull it out, and then you can measure it.
The number you get from that measurement, that is your max CBTO. Now think of this as your 0 point, your starting line. It's the length where the bullet is physically touching the lands. This is almost never where you'll want to seat your final rounds, but it is the absolute most important reference point for all your testing.
All right, let's bring it all home. Let's talk about what really matters for stacking those bullets on top of each other, because finding that max number, that's really just the beginning of the journey.
So let's recap the big points. First, if you're serious about precision, it's time to stop chasing COL and start focusing on CBTO. Second, remember that your rifle is unique. You have to find its max CBTO for every different bullet you plan to use. Third, you use that max number as your starting point to test different jump distances, maybe 10 thousandths off the lands, 20,000, whatever. And finally, and this is the most important thing, the goal isn't finding one magic number. The goal is making every single round in your batch identical. A consistent CBTO is the true path to accuracy.
So I'll leave you with this question to think about. Your rifle has a sweet spot. It has a seating depth that it absolutely loves for any given load. It's trying to tell you what it wants. The only question is, are you using the right tools and the right measurements to actually listen to it? Thanks for joining me.